unhealthy self-esteem leads to things like increased youth violence, low academic performance, poor mental health, all of the things that, low self-esteem is this common denominator. And these huge tech companies, they can do so much more when it comes to helping to make sure we're really using technology for the good of our people.
Hey everyone, this is another episode of The Business of Education, and yes, I'm your host, Kyle Walgren. As you guys know, I don't typically run from many scripts, but this next guest has accomplished so much stuff in our education space that I don't want to mess anything up. Our guest is Margo Jordan. She's the CEO and founder of a company called Enrichly. Margo is a social entrepreneur who used technology and data to improve self-esteem in youth. She has impacted over 200,000 children worldwide through her innovative platform, Youth Enrichment. She is also the CEO and founder of Chicks with Class. This lady's done it all. Margo's journey is remarkable. She holds a BA in finance from Texas Southern University and an MBA from Capella University, both with honors. Her work has been recognized by numerous prestigious awards and grants, including Google Black Founders Fund, Amazon Prime's 2-Minute Drill. Margo's mission is to help youth realize their full potential through engaging tech-based solutions. Enrichly, her latest venture, is a personal development gaming platform designed to boost self-esteem using gamification and data. Wow. Margo, thank you to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Kyle. This is such a pleasure.
I'm so excited to talk to you. Usually somebody, goes and does one great thing. You've done multiple. First, thank you for your service.
Of course.
You started your journey into the military, and then you told me you got into investment banking and then entrepreneurship. That's kind of, a different route to go. Give us a little bit of background and how you went through that journey and what got you headed into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I kind of start by telling why I even went down this route here. So I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and when I was a young girl, I struggled with my self-esteem. This was really just due to a lot of childhood traumas that I'd experienced. My parents were married and divorced several different times from one another. My mother was a veteran and she suffered from PTSD, so she actually had this acute addiction to drugs and alcohol. So I was really this kid in high school just making a bunch of poor decisions, like getting sucked into peer pressure, doing things that were not really leading me down the right path. However, when I turned 18, I decided to join the military. And it was really the military that was allowing me to sort of combat a lot of these poor decisions that I was making. And there is where I really kind of discovered this sense of self-discipline, morals, and my self-esteem really flourished. So I was able to not only realize what my potential actually was, but actually start to reach towards that potential. So still serving in the military, I decided to leave Wisconsin and I went on to Texas Southern University. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in finance, went into investment banking. And I kind of quickly realized that was just not really what I wanted to do. I really wanted to create this solution to this problem that I had when I was a kid. And it was something that I was still struggling with when I was an adult. And there's a phrase that I live by, which is you teach best what you need the most. And for me, it was this thing around self-esteem. I actually had gotten honorably discharged from the military. So honorably and medically discharged. So I was no longer serving in the military. I didn't want to be in investment banking. And I really had this sort of passion to just create this solution. So I left investment banking. And that's where I built this brick and mortar that was in Houston back in 2017 called Chicks with Class. And this was like a self-esteem learning center for girls. I put about $250,000 into this building. And if you think of like a tutoring center, it was very similar, but the only thing we taught was how to develop a healthy self-esteem, a positive body image. We had after school programs and like all of these things that really sort of taught kids how to develop a healthy self-esteem. We were like approached by school principals and like counselors, and they were saying, hey, can you come and put this program in our school? Because we really like what you're doing and nobody else is doing this exactly. So, when COVID happened and we had to pivot, it just kind of just seemed like the right thing to do, just to be completely digital, go into these schools, close down our brick and mortar. And, now we're here. And yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Then would you say that Chicks with Class converted into Enrichly?
Definitely
Interesting.
converted, yes,
Okay.
into Enrichly.
So that's a heck of a journey. I've got a couple questions around the military aspect of it. Austin, the kid that helps me do these podcasts, is a former military member as well.
Oh,
I feel like
nice.
I say to him all the time, he's the best at following instruction, but I'd like him to lead for himself once in a while. So my mindset was that the military made you really good at taking orders. So the fact that you're standing out saying, you know, you wanted to go out and build your own business
Oh, yeah.
was a different view than how I looked at what the military did. So I'm interested to
Yeah.
learn changing and transitioning into somebody that's going to have to go out and freely think for themselves and solve their own problems and everything like that. And maybe I'm just completely oblivious to what the military is. If I am, I apologize. I grew up in Canada. Our submarines
No
sink, so
worries.
we don't have a military really. We do, but I wouldn't you know say much about it. But you dive into self-esteem. I think I'm a father of four. I've got one daughter. She's my world, and she's 9. And I see these self-esteem things happening already. Social media is a thing. Kids are mean.
Yeah.
Girls are really mean when they're young.
Yes.
Um, you know, how are some of the things that you dove into first, and then how has that progressed now that machine learning is taking place?
Oh, wow. So honestly, some of the things that we dove into first was and I guess I'll just touch on a few things. When it came to building the actual program, it was how do we measure like the efficacy of what it is that we're doing? How do we know we're actually improving self-esteem? And that was really due to this self-esteem assessment that I found on the CDC's website, Centers for Disease Control. They have a self-esteem test where they provide to students, and we use that from day one. That was really a way for us to deliver these pre and post self esteem assessments. And as far as the curriculum, I made sure to bring in like experts, who have backgrounds in psychology, educational psychology, early childhood development, to really help to craft what the curriculum looks like when we're delivering these workshops to these students. When COVID happened and I had to like figure out a way to pivot, I knew that I wanted to include gamification. Games make everything fun. So Enrichly uses like these video game like modules to incorporate all of our curriculum into, and it's really fun for the end user. And honestly, machine learning kind of fun fact, I was pitching machine learning in 2020 when we had initially pivoted. And the interesting thing about us really kind of looking at machine learning was I knew that there was some type of way to really allow students to have their behaviors influenced by technology. Because
Mm-hmm.
like for example, when you're shopping for something online and you just sort of Google something, and then all of a sudden you're seeing all of these things around whatever you were shopping for. So my thinking was, and this was way back in 2020, was what if I can apply that same technique towards technology, but it's sort of doing the opposite. It's like when a student is like, I don't know, they're Googling something around body image or why do I feel fat or things like this that girls are usually thinking about, who have low self-esteem. Then you would have these sort of Google keywords following you around that help you to improve your body image issues that you may have.
Mm-hmm.
So we were literally talking about this since 2020, and unfortunately, because of the lack of access to capital, I was never able to bring that version to full fruition. And now we're in 2024, and like everybody's talking about machine learning. So I definitely would say like we were always ahead of our time with what it was that we're offering. Uh, and right now today, because we've been able to like secure some funding and really build out the technology a lot more, we're able to incorporate, like, for example, we have a recommendation engine built behind our self-esteem assessment, so that way we can really personalize the experience for each one of the children. We just hired this data science intern who is going to help build out our impact analysis report, which is, further embedding more of our machine learning into the tool. But uh, technology changes so fast, and what
Daily.
was relevant even 5 months ago, we have an updated or upgraded version right now today. So our goal is honestly just to stay, I guess you can say, constantly evolving when it comes to what the technology is able to do for effectively improving self-esteem in kids.
So, um, wow, there's a lot to unbutton there. The one of the things that you'd said that made my mind start wandering, and this is, it's not a secret, but uh, suggestions or recommendation engines or content to date hasn't been the most friendly thing for women, especially
Mm.
young girls, around self confidence, body imagery, and body confidence. And
Yeah,
I watch my wife go through these challenges. I watch my daughter, deal with insecurities.
yeah.
How big a role do you think, to a negative, companies like Google or Facebook play into that right now?
Mm. It's such a huge issue. And, we are always looking for ways that we can use technology for good versus for evil. And we really try to combat things that you may see. For example, Instagram is a huge,
Mm,
um, I guess you can say, downer when it comes to lowering self esteem, because it's all based on, what people like, and getting this sort of external validation to make you feel better about yourself, right?
false
And
realities.
then, yeah, and it's like you're constantly seeing, like, things that the public may view as beautiful or whatever the case is, and this is like constantly on your timeline. So if you have an average body, which, majority of women do, and majority of men, but you're constantly seeing things projected onto you, and it's causing the mind to sort of want that, and feeling bad about who you are. And I wish that folks like Google and Meta, they see a technology like what Enrichly is offering or has, and really tries to propel that into society, so that we can really help to shape minds for the better, honestly, because unhealthy self-esteem leads to things like increased youth violence, low academic performance, poor mental health, all of the things that, low self-esteem is this common denominator. And these huge tech companies, they can do so much more when it comes to helping to make sure we're really using technology for the good of our people.
No, that makes so much sense. The My wife brought it up to me the other day. She's like, "You complicate me more, or compliment me more when we're at home than when you do when I dress up." And I'm like, "That's because I don't need to see what Instagram and Facebook sees. I see the beauty in, your everyday waking up with your hair in a mess and going and looking after our kids. That's the beauty that I
Yeah,
admire." And I think that
so
if people
sweet.
took a step back to be in those moments of like what reality is and find beauty in that, it would be
Yeah,
ultimately a better place than trying to put ourselves in this false reality in the like button. But that is our
so true.
reality, is that like button so important. Can you share some of the success stories that you've been able to go through with Enrichly, and some of the impacts that you're seeing that they're making in real time?
Oh yes. So many. So I'll say that we have seen a statistically significant improvement in self-esteem of all of the students who participate in our program. So we're generally seeing an average of around 74% of their self-esteem improving from starting our program to ending our program. We were literally hand selected by the royal family of Abu Dhabi to
Oh,
bring our
wow.
technology into this region, which is, I'm actually in Abu Dhabi right now. We've been piloting programs here for the past couple of months with several schools. And, folks from like the Abu Dhabi Department of Health, they see the potential in what we're doing and they want us to do things around obesity initiatives. We've seen a lot of students. We have like thousands of video testimonials from students who say, thanks to Enrichly, I've learned to love myself for who I am. I feel more confident in myself. And we explain to students there's a huge difference between self-esteem and confidence. However, how your self-esteem is, plays a part in how confident you show up. So, for us, it feels so great to know that we've created something that's actually impactful. Everybody in our team, they've all had their own experiences with self-esteem, so they're able to pour all of that into the development of the content, the technology, the marketing, everything. And we've seen just such a positive impact by simply improving self-esteem in students. So yeah, I can't even count on two hands the number of kids that we've impacted through our technology.
That's so awesome to hear. You said there's a difference between self-esteem and confidence. I
Yes.
think probably even adults would not know the difference between those two things. Could you give us
They
a
would.
30,000-foot overview to help us
Oh yeah.
understand the differences between those?
Yes. So when you look at confidence, right? Let's look at your favorite athlete, your favorite singer, actor, actress, performer. When they show up on stage or when they're on the field or on court on the court, they're super confident in their ability, right, to either win, to perform, to capture the audience. But why do you think that over 50% of these athletes and performers suffer from things like addiction or depression or anxiety? It's really because their self esteem is still lacking. They still have this unhealthy sense of self. You can be confident in your abilities to go out and maybe as a founder, you're confident in your ability to raise money from investors. You're confident in your ability to take your product to market. But at the end of the day, you're still failing overall because you have an unhealthy sense of self. So even if you may go out and raise money from investors, but because you have an unhealthy sense of self, you either splurge on the money that you raised from these investors and now your business is failing because you're not making healthy decisions, or you're simply looking at yourself with the distorted self image and you're not allowing yourself to reach your full potential. So I tell my students all the time, self-esteem is a muscle. You have to work on it every single day. You can have all the confidence in the world, but still have the lowest self-esteem in the room.
That's
So
so
that's sort of like a
impactful.
30,000-foot view.
It made me start thinking as from an entrepreneur standpoint. I know that I've built many different companies and I've had several small exits, no gigantic exits to speak of, but I've built very good functioning companies. So I know I can build businesses, but I
Yeah.
suffer from an imposter syndrome daily,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
wondering if I'm the right person to handle the task that has been put on my plate.
Oh, yeah.
Um, is there some sort of like imposter syndrome that kids go through when trying to build self-confidence? Does it happen that early?
Oh yes, it happens. It happens so early, and this is why it's so important for us to teach children at this early of an age. It's because you start to craft this version of yourself in your mind as early as I want to say 6, even.
Oh, wow.
And when children are sort of looking at themselves and then comparing themselves to either their friend, a family member, or whatever the case is, they're sort of extracting the version of themselves that they think they should be based on either things that their parents are projecting onto them. If I had a dime for every instance a counselor told me, well, this child is dealing with XYZ because of the pressures that their parents put on them. And it's really sad because parents, we don't know what we don't know. But at the end of the day, 90% of the time a child has low self-esteem is either due to a parent or a teacher, because this is where they're spending majority of their time with. So children have imposter syndrome just like adults. It shows up in different forms for a child versus an adult, but it's still there.
What are some of the things parents can do? So this is two different questions, but both around parents and self-esteem. What are some things that parents can do to add to a child's self-esteem? But also, what are some things that parents can use to identify if their child's maybe having self-esteem issues?
So, to answer the first part of your question, one of the things that parents can do is, and this is something that I do as a parent, I celebrate my child's efforts versus their achievements. So, if my child is trying to do something, but they failed, I'm always the first person that's like, look, you did an amazing job. As long as you went out there and you tried your hardest, that is all that matters. And I make sure that I'm not sort of just giving them this false sense of achievement. My son, for example, he's in competition tumbling and he lost one of his competitions. And as opposed to me feeling bad for him and saying, oh, you lost, you should have won. No, the person who won deserved to win. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that you need to do to make sure you win, do that next time. And you're going to win. As long as you tried your hardest, that's what matters. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of parents give their children this false sense of achievement. It's like, you did an amazing job just because you know, and they try to say, oh well, you won, so you did great. So it's like, now that child is paying attention to, okay, I have to achieve in order to be celebrated, as opposed to, I'm just going to try, and as long as I know I did good, then that makes all the difference in the world. And then I also teach my children how to set healthy boundaries. I had did a TED talk a couple of years ago, and one of the sort of things around how to develop a healthy self-esteem is you have to set healthy boundaries, learn to say no, being okay with saying no, and understanding that no is a complete sentence. You don't have to explain things to people if you don't want to do something. Then the last thing that I would say is encourage your children to develop healthy habits, right? You don't have to do this overnight, but if it's as much as, let's eat something healthy, as opposed to this snack option one time out of the day. I always tell my team, even 1% better every day.
I love that.
That's, something that matters.
There's a few things that I love. The thing that I love the most that you just said is no is a complete sentence. I love
Yes.
that. I'm going to start using it. No is a complete sentence. But one of the things that uh, hit me this morning, and I actually was reading a post on Instagram, Gary Vee was talking about competitiveness within their children. And I love looking at the comments of a lot of stuff, especially controversial stuff like this. Gary Vee is a very upbeat, positive guy, like rah, rah, rah. And then he said something that was a little bit edgy, and to watch like the pushback, it made me chuckle. But you said something that you award off of efforts versus achievements,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't take away from the competitiveness of the value behind the effort. What I
Correct.
mean by that is it's not, oh, I have a saying at my house. I don't know if it's right or wrong. It might contradict what you're saying, but my kids are very competitive, and I don't need to beat up on them when they do bad because they beat up on themselves. So when we get in the car after a baseball game that he didn't do his best at, I don't got to say nothing. He already knows. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we say if you show me somebody that's okay with losing, and I'll show you a loser.
Mm.
And to me, I was doubting that saying this morning, but I'm not saying that, it's not okay to lose. I'm saying that it's not okay to be stuck in that position or be
Correct.
okay with that position,
Yeah.
but going out and losing and trying your butt off, I've never had a problem with that. I've never gone to one of my kids' sports or activities. I've got a daughter in cheerleading. My sons are in baseball, and my youngest son's too, and he's going to be a golfer. But I'm okay with them losing as long as they tried their hardest. If they go out
Yeah.
and lose and they put in zero effort, well, that's a different conversation. But
Correct.
I appreciate the way that you worded that. Achievements are efforts versus achievements. But just parents, don't confuse that for being okay with just showing up. You know
Yeah.
what I
Oh,
mean?
for sure.
I just wanted to point that out. Identifying growth in self-esteem. How is that
Mhm.
something that you guys calculate? You said that you got your original information off the CDC. How do you measure growth? What are some of the things you do to do that?
So when we in our technologies in specific, we deliver this pre self-esteem assessment. It's 10 questions that are asking them certain things that measure their self-esteem. One of the questions, for example, is I feel that I'm a person of worth at least equal to others. Or another question is I wish I could have more respect for myself. And that question in particular, a lot of our young ladies in the program say strongly agree, which is really sad when you think about it. But then we perform that same assessment after each one of our programs are administered. And then from there, our students would do a compare and contrast of the responses. And that's how we get our impact analysis reports. So not only do we do it sort of with our digital assessment tool, but then we also take feedback and survey data from either their teachers and then sometimes parents. And we'll ask questions like, have you noticed a change in behavior with your student? And most of the time, all of our students answer the question of, does this program help you feel better about yourself? Um, did this actually improve your self esteem? And we had did a high school version of this, one of our in person programs, and 99% of the students said yes. Now, high school students are very honest about their experiences. And I wasn't really shocked because I know how strong our programs and our technology is. But, it made me feel great because here are these students who are 17, 18 years old and saying, this really helped improve my self esteem. Um, so, yeah, that's how we sort of measure the growth in that student from pre and post.
No, that's awesome. I believe that everything to do with kids takes a village in order to reinforce and grow and build value. What are some things that we can do for our communities to make sure that we're inspiring children and making sure they have the best opportunities to have a high self-esteem?
Um, I want to say expose them to different opportunities. Make sure we are really giving them a different lens. Um, Also, making sure that we are paying close attention to the mental health aspect. As I think a community, sometimes we can get so lost in things like academics and you're failing this grade or you're failing this thing, so let me put you in tutoring when it might not even be that they need tutoring in specific. They more than likely need help with mental resilience and really developing their self-esteem. So I think as communities, we should really put more emphasis on mental health. It was so interesting. I had a conversation with, oh my gosh, I'm drawing him, David Goggins. I had an
Interesting.
opportunity to do like a jet ride with him from, I think it was like Salt Lake City to Vegas,
Oh,
and we
wow.
were having a conversation around like he used to stutter really bad when he was a child, and his parents, I think, put him in speech therapy, and the therapist, they were trying to figure out like what was really wrong with him in his stutter and his speech. And come to find out, it was really just he lacked this confidence, and when he grew that, his speech was better. And he said himself like, I think if a lot more people paid attention to the self-esteem, we would get rid of a lot of issues that youth sort of face. And it's putting emphasis on technology and programs like what Enrichly offers that would really drive things like a decrease in youth violence and improvement in academics and really creating this overall improvement in mental health of
Mhm.
children. So yeah.
I agree with that so much. And what I'm about to say is my opinion only. This has nothing to do with you, but I started looking into my health journey a little bit more over the last few years, especially since the COVID thing happened. And I feel like a lot of people would say maybe we didn't get all the truth, during that time. So I wanted to know what other not so much truth were we not getting. And when I started looking into like my own health journey, a lot of diagnoses there's studies that if you treat an underlying cause, maybe a mineral deficiency or a vitamin deficiency, you can actually stop a lot of stuff. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I have high blood pressure, and I was on blood pressure medicine.
Hmm.
And ultimately, I changed my diet. I started donating blood. I'm not a doctor, but I no longer have to take blood pressure medicine, right? And it was just by
Wow.
focusing on some underlying stuff that wasn't necessarily the root or the basics of the problem, but the root of the cause. And I
Yeah.
think what you're saying is focusing on that root cause.
Exactly.
It is,
Yes.
and it doesn't have to be some Ritalin. Here's some Ritalin. Don't worry
Correct.
about it. We got to look a little deeper into what these
Yeah.
issues are because they're overflowing with effects, and it's not a bunch of medicine that's going to fix it. It's focusing and digging in a little deeper and putting in some efforts. Two quick things I want to talk to you about. Scaling. You're in Abu Dhabi right
Yes.
now.
Yes.
To all the startup founders, talk scaling. What's your challenges?
Challenges for me. So honestly, candidly speaking, um, it's underestimating things as a founder and looking at like, so I would say we estimated around, I want to say initially around 70,000 a month in like payroll and different expenses. And that's easily an additional 40K a month. So
I know that feeling.
whatever you think is going to be, add an additional 50K just because. So that was like one of our challenges. And then really just getting over the fact that our company, like the way that we look at cash flow, things are lumpy. So make sure that you're, as a founder, that you always have like a backup plan when your customers are paying invoices late. Or when you have an additional expense because you have to pay some federal taxes that you had no idea about. So making sure that when you're scaling, you're also keeping these processes and systems in place. I literally tell all of my employees, like, look, whatever it is that you do a screen record and put it in a folder so we can save it for the next person who may be coming in under you. And we have your processes, because when you're a startup founder, it's so easy for, if one person is taken off because they're sick or they have to go do surgery, now who's going to do that person's job while they're gone? Make sure
Right.
you have their processes and systems like documented, so when they're gone, none of the balls drop. As a startup, you can't afford to have anything drop because every customer matters.
Mm-hmm.
um and then I would also say, like, people, make sure you have the right people on the team. Sometimes if you are having an issue with someone on the team, it's not so much as, oh, I'm going to fire them. Maybe it's, they can stay on the bus, but I'm just going to give them a different seat on the bus, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so
I like
maybe
that.
try to figure out where else they can fit into the team. Not saying you should create a role for somebody so that they can stay. However, if you know that you're dealing with someone in your team, they've been there for a while, they do a good job, but they're just not doing a great job at this particular job, find a different role for them within the company, because you don't want to lose that loyalty and that dedication that that person has given and you've built that with them. And then honestly, I would also say awareness. Make sure, like for us, it's, we need as many people to know about what we're doing as possible, and making sure that the right person knows about what we're doing. Spending your time wisely is very important in early stage. I know we can get so sort of bogged down by so many different opportunities, but it's sort of like recognizing what opportunities are the best for you at the time being, and your resources are going to that thing. Make sure it's going to get you some type of ROI.
Mm-hmm.
ROI doesn't have to mean money right up front, but ROI in terms of like, what is this going to help you achieve in the future? Um, so yeah, I mean, those are some of the struggles that we've dealt with as we're scaling. Um, and I want to say, I mean, like there are so many other ones to discuss, but those are the top.
So I'm gonna ask the last question that I always end on, and then when we go offline, I'm gonna talk to you about this a little bit more. I have some introductions I want to make for you. Network. How important is your network, and how has that helped you?
Your network is so important. Like I'm literally the type of founder. I have such a huge network, but I hate asking for help because I hate feeling like people are going to view it as if I don't know what I'm doing. And I had to really change my mentality in that way because at the end of the day, I know exactly what I'm doing. And a lot of the people in my network, it's about that imposter syndrome that, you talked about earlier. And I literally have a whole company where I teach kids how to develop self-esteem, but I still struggle from time to time myself.
Mhm.
So reaching out to my network has allowed me to speed up deals. It's allowed me to make sure that I meet payroll, and it's really allowed me to get as far as I've gotten as fast as I've gotten. And I underestimate the power of my network at times. That I will tell founders all day, every day: use your network. Just reach out to people, and it doesn't even have to be you reaching out for something all the time. Just reach out to say, "Hey, how are you doing?" This is this
Yeah,
is
I,
really
I like
hard.
updating the people I've got in my network
Yeah.
every day because a lot of times, more than not, they're like, "Oh, you're there. This triggered a thought. I should introduce you to this person." Um, just like what I'll talk to you about offline. But Margo, I've had a blast talking with you. I look
Yes.
forward to it. And if anybody wants to get your program, how do they find it? I think this is super important.
Well, awesome. Well, so they can just go to enrichly.world. So enrichly.world. You can fill out a form or you can kind of just sign up. We have a direct to parent subscription. So if parents are listening to this, sign up on enrichly.world. Or you can contact me on LinkedIn. It's just Margo Jordan. And yeah, and on Instagram is enrich.ly.
And we'll put the links in the description for anybody that didn't get those. So everybody that wants to reach out, I recommend doing it. I think this is a great program, and um, we can ultimately all work together and mold lives for a better future. Our kids are everything, and we need to give them the tools that they need to succeed. So, Margo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
I look
Kyle.
forward to talking to you in the future.
You as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.